Do you remember the question that Catherine asked us last week? She asked us, why do we practice? She brought up the concept of samvega, which means spiritual urgency. Well, the Tibetans can be very dramatic about this. They instruct us to meditate as if our hair is on fire. This life is precious, and we don't want to squander this time. These lives are in our own good care, and the world needs us to practice too. Susan Morgan wrote to all of us, and she said, there is enough heat, enough fire, enough greed, hatred, and ignorance. Let's practice being a cool breeze, a balm. Let's train our hearts to grow wise and kind. Let's keep practicing together. Let's practice in support and solidarity, a collective effort to wake up into a kinder way of relating and being in the world. That's a reason to practice. And we come back to this holding environment. We come back so we can steady, we can reorient and ground and maybe find some courage. I know I need a lot of courage along this path. And in the holding environment, we feel into that atmosphere of goodwill, and we encourage kindness. We want to create the conditions for our hearts to open and to be more at ease. Today, I'm going to discuss the 4 Brahmaviharas in broad strokes. The Brahmaviharas are nuanced and complex. There are many practices that help us to understand and support us to embody them. It's an interesting word, Brahmavihara. Brahma means noble. Vihara means dwelling, monastery. These qualities can dwell within us. We can be the dwelling place of these qualities. The 4 abodes, sometimes they're known as the 4 immeasurables. They're unconditional, the great perfections. They are not abstract or cognitive. They are embodied. These are aspirational qualities, and they really work in concert with one another. They are meant to be practiced in all conditions. Sometimes we live into them, and sometimes we may even close the door on them. Back to Catherine's question. Why do we practice? We practice, one of the reasons we practice is so that we can become more predisposed to embody these qualities. People can spend long periods of time focusing on each of them, lifetime. Each one is a subject of a meditation. Remember, these have been sources of contemplation for thousands of years. I guess I also want to say, I think it's important that in any of these Dharma teachings, we don't use them to ramp up our self-critical voice. They are invitations for us to investigate our relationship to them. Invitations. So here they are. The Pali word metta, or loving kindness, is the first of the 4 Brahmaviharas. Metta, the English definition, translation of metta, is loving kindness. And it's important to know it's not just loving And it's not just kindness, it is the blend of the two. And we're going to talk more about this later. Christina Feldman wrote in Boundless Heart, I know I shared this a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's so, so beautiful. Loving kindness teaches us my peace and happiness, my freedom is linked to and interwoven with yours. And my confusion, my fear and sorrow is linked to and interwoven with yours. Metta is a language of us, a language of we. Metta penetrates dualistic thinking. A separate self begins to dissolve. It penetrates dualistic thinking. And up from the ground, the fertile ground of metta, grows karuna. Karuna, which is compassion, a willingness to turn toward suffering, whether it's our own or the suffering of another. Compassion is the recognition of suffering with a desire to alleviate it. Now, here's where you see how karuna is related and works in concert with loving kindness, because it's hard to feel compassion towards someone or even ourselves without an atmosphere of friendliness. I don't know that we can even do it. It's really hard. Mingyur Rinpoche is a well-known Tibetan teacher, and he writes, compassion is the spontaneous wisdom of the heart. It is always with us. It always has been and always will be. When it arises in us, we've simply learned to see how strong and safe we really are. And this is another reason we practice, because we want to begin to trust our strength, our sense of safety inside. We want to trust that we have a little more courage to turn and face challenges. I also think it's really quite exciting how much, sort of a by the way, how much research there is now on compassion, on loving kindness, patience, generosity. Maybe this gives us even some more confidence in these practices. The next Brahmavihara is mudita, which is the Pali word for joy. And Susan writes, by illuminating joy, we are bringing the wholesome around, feeding the heart good food, and restoring its lightness and brightness. Mindfulness offers us such an intimacy with all that we experience, right? It helps us to expand our capacity to appreciate what we might often consider ordinary, like this breath, or an old friend calling us, a warm cup of tea, a fresh new day. It does take a deliberate intention to see and feel into joyful moments. We make the deliberate choice to notice and savor. And one more time with this, these qualities dance, because it is hard to feel joy for someone I don't like. It is difficult to feel joy for someone who has hurt me in some way. Buddha said, live in joy, in love, even among those who hate. Live in joy and health, even among the afflicted. Live in joy and peace, even among the troubled. Look within. He is instructing us to choose joy. And the fourth, and maybe most challenging, upekkha, equanimity. Here's a dictionary definition: mental calmness, composure, evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. That sounds good, straightforward. However, this definition suggests a sense of indifference. There's a reason that equanimity comes as a higher practice, because it is not a spiritual bypass or a Zen zone. Gil Fonsdale, a meditation teacher at Spirit Rock, describes what Buddha said about upekkha. Upekkha is abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and ill will. Not the same thing as indifference, is it? The point of equanimity is not to lose one's heartfelt connection with the things that are going on around us, whether it is about always rebalancing with a clear recognition of how things are. And equanimity for all of us is especially difficult when it is challenged in so many ways, undermined by fear and hatred, ill will, preferences, biases. These are powerful, divisive energies. We're doing this all the time. Equanimity is challenged when we're caught in our self-view or self-righteous view of blame and preferences. I like you and I don't like you, or I really like her because she said that. We're doing this constantly, and our practice is helping us to see this clearly. The world needs us to practice. Susan wrote, "There is enough heat, enough fire, enough greed, hatred, and ignorance. Let's practice being a cool breeze, a balm. Let's train our hearts to grow wise and kind. Let's keep practicing together in support and solidarity, a collective effort to wake up into a way of being and relating to this world that is kinder." This is one of the reasons we practice.